Welcome to Our Voices. I am Show-Fontenot. I'm the host for the show. We have a good show for you this day and have three very distinguished panelists and some young people here. And we're going to be talking about issues that are affecting our young people, our teens. Many of us are very concerned about our young people. In fact, many of our young people have been labeled, I guess, Generation X or Z or something of that sort. And there's so much concern that we're actually losing a generation that we thought that we would do this show as one of a series of shows with young people to figure out what's going on with them and what kinds of things would they like to talk about and what kinds of issues they might have, and it's be a learning process for us and them. To my immediate right is Melinda Robinson Moffitt, who is the Assistant Director of Career Services here at Mercer University. Hi, Melinda, how are you?
Hello, doing well, sir.
All right, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, to my immediate left is Dr. Barbara Matthews, who is a clinical assistant professor in our family health program here at Mercer Medical School, but she's also at the Family Health Center, where she also sees patients. How are you doing, Dr. Matthews?
I'm doing wonderful this evening.
Very good. And to my far left, this distinguished gentleman is Dr. Alan Williams, who is a clinical psychologist in our psych department here at Mercer University, and also we share him with the Mercer Medical School. How are you doing, Doc?
Well, thank you.
Okay. Very good, very good. We have so many issues, don't we, when it comes to young people, and I become really quite concerned with our youth. Of course, some of the concern that I have, and many of us have, might not be real. You know, some of it is real, some of it may not be real. And our young people, I think, are going to straighten us out about some things, you know, today. But as you talk about young people, I know you work with Career Services here, you know, at Mercer, and you used to also work with Upward Bound,
That's right.
you know, et cetera. What kinds of issues do you think our youth, our teens are facing right now?
Well, maybe I could begin by saying I think that we do have a lot of wonderful, wonderful young people.
Yes.
I think they catch a bad rap for a lot of things that may or may not be their fault. But the truth is there is a lot of room for improvement. Our young people today have issues that we didn't have in our generation, meaning that you have a lot of technology, hence you have a lot of access to knowledge that may be above your level right now. So they have some issues pertaining to how to really conceptualize all this different information. And I think that they really need to utilize the adults that are around them, their support system, to get better advice. So I look forward to talking a little more about that as the show progresses.
Right. It almost seems as if people aren't talking to each other like we
That's
used to,
true.
right?
That's true. Lack of communication.
Right, lack of communication so much, so many times, you know, I go places and everybody's talking to their phone, you know.
Instead of to one another.
Right,
Right.
with one another. I even saw, having dinner just about a week or two ago, a young man and a young woman sitting across from each other in a restaurant, and neither one was looking at each other or talking to each other. He was on his phone, she was on hers. But they was apparently on a date.
Wow.
And that's
Times have changed.
yes, yeah. Times have surely changed. When I was a teen, I think the young lady would have had a few things to say to me that would not have been complimentary if I would have done that. How about you, Dr. Matthews? Do you?
Well, most of my concerns are not so much about the kids. I agree with Melinda. I think we have very wonderful kids in our community. And some of them don't always behave in wonderful ways. But I think a lot of that is because of the environment that they live in. The music culture right now encourages a lot of inappropriate behavior, and in fact, sometimes straight up criminal behavior. The system at school is sort of lagging behind modern times. And by that I mean kids now are very web savvy, they're very computer oriented, they're very much into chatting online and this sort of thing, and to my knowledge that really hasn't been incorporated into their learning. And that's a wonderful opportunity to engage kids who may not otherwise be engaged, for them to be able to tweet their teacher and ask questions and that sort of thing. And I also think as a community, we failed our children in our failure to communicate, not to be political, but a lot of the abstinence-only education basically, to me, is keeping our children ignorant and impeding their ability to make good decisions. Because if they don't have a reliable source to get information from, then it just turns into you just listen to whatever is available in the pop culture or what you read online or what your friend told you, as opposed to being able to get good, accurate information in your health class, for example, about how to manage yourself. And not just talking about sexuality, even diet and nutrition information that children are given is often inaccurate. And you know, we have rampant obesity in our community, and part of that is kids don't have information to be able to know how to make good choices, even if they wanted to. And I think as a whole, it falls squarely on our shoulders. We're the educators. We're supposed to be teaching our children. And I think a lot of times as parents, as educators, as caregivers, we don't teach them so much as we tell them, which is different. And we don't so much guide them as we do try to control them. And I just don't think that's very useful.
Right. No, thank you very much. Yes, it's problematic, goes both ways.
Right.
Yeah, very much so. How about you, Dr. Wood?
Well, I would agree that sometimes, particularly in the work I do, it's easy to get a biased view of how kids are doing because I'm always in contact with kids who are in trouble.
Right.
And not doing well, and I have to stop sometimes and remind myself that not even the children I see are not always having problems, and you know, there are lots of kids out there who are doing well. The other thing that occurs to me is I have to remind myself, and I enjoy reminding myself what it was like to be a teenager. And I'm a long way from a teenager, but I remember those times very, very well. You go into a big room of people, well, even in this room, and you ask, how old would you like to be if you could be any age that you've ever been or could imagine being? How old would you like to be? Let's just do an informal sample. How old would you like to be?
Oh my gosh, probably about 100.
100?
Yeah, maybe so.
How old would you like to be?
I'd like to probably be about 30.
30?
Mm-hmm.
May I ask you,
28.
I think about 21.
Oh, I think I misunderstood then. That's how old I would like to live to be.
Right. How old
All
would
right.
you
Okay.
like to be?
Oh my goodness.
When was the best time you remember?
That 4-year span of college. So how about somewhere between, somewhere
18,
18,
20?
19, 20?
Well, it
Yeah.
occurs to me that, and you can do this with hundreds of people in the room, nobody says 14 or 15.
Right.
Oh, no.
Nobody says that.
A difficult
Oh, we
age.
don't
No.
That's a
Right,
difficult age.
right.
Yeah.
We remember those as being difficult times when we were struggling with a lot of things, and you know, hopefully we learned something out of it. We're glad to be past it. Nobody wants to go back to it. So I stop and remind myself of that once in a while. Is what was it? And maybe we can talk about it during this time together. But what was it that made being 13, 14, 15 so difficult? So it helps me sometimes just to back up and remember that perspective.
Yeah, and then that's very important because you know, in your line of work, what you do, what some of us do, probably with Dr. Matthews, you know, I know Melinda has worked with some of our kids who's at risk with the Upward Bound program, and I've done the same. It's easy to get the wrong impression or the bad impression of young people because so often, so many of the young people that you come abreast of are problematic and they're having issues, serious issues in some cases. And we lose sight of the fact that majority of young people don't have those kinds of issues.
Right.
They actually, you know.
And even if they do, when they're 20, 21 years old, very often they've solved them.
Right.
Exactly.
They're doing well.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. One of my friends told me some time ago that someone was saying some bad things about me. You know, when I was a teenager. You know, and I was, you know, kind of rough in the community I was growing up in. Everybody had to be rough, and so an older guy, man, told me, he said, "Don't worry about that." He said, "If you live long enough, all of a sudden you'll get better."
Right.
He said, "Whether you do or not, those people who saying bad things about you now, they'll die." And you'll get better because your reputation will improve, he said.
And you'll learn a few things.
And you learn a few things in the process. That's right. That's right.
Well, and I think a lot of times as parents, And just as people, we expect too much perfection out of people. Not just teens, but in general, people make mistakes.
Right.
And when you're just figuring life out, of course you make a lot of them. You know, I always encourage my own kids, make new and improved mistakes. I can tell you what I did that was messed up when I was your age and the mistakes I made. Don't bother making those mistakes. I've already proved that doesn't work. So
Right.
you go out and you experience life and make your own mistakes. And I always encourage people, look at your peers, look at your parents, look at your family, pay attention to the world around you and kind of see how things turn out. But we never can expect our kids to get everything right every time they try something. You know, that's the big challenge of being a teen. You have this whole world ahead of you and so many opportunities to do things for good or for bad, and a limited understanding of what the next step is from the choice that you made.
Right.
And most of the time you get to start over.
Right. You
You know,
absolutely
no matter
do.
how bad your mistake is, with some exceptions, but you do get to start over.
You absolutely
Each
do.
school year is a new start, each summer's a new start.
Oh, yeah.
So,
You always get to start over. I wish I could say that every decision I've made since I was 12 years old was absolutely perfect. I did everything exactly right, and I never made any mistakes. I never did anything wrong. You know, I was perfect, and that's why I've come to be successful. Nah, that's not how it works. It's basically the grace of God, to be
Exactly.
honest with you, and people giving me another chance when I made mistakes, and people not being harsh and judgmental when I misstep, and being supportive and encouraging instead of judgmental.
Well, we have some young people here, and we're talking about you, so now we'd like you to participate, you know, if possible. Anybody
And
would
you're
like
all
to?
looking shy as cute.
Right. Right.
We've got-
Anybody?
come on up.
Come.
Questions?
Yes. Say your name too when you come up, please.
My name is Kendra Ashley. I'm from Twist County. I go to the Magic Johnson Green State Post Academy School. And I was listening to what y'all was saying, and like with me, it started in my community. I grew up in a hostility environment, so I was influenced by all that. And then again, I was a perfect athlete until I just got into that trouble, one little trouble, and everything just went down the drain. But now, since I moved out and I've been with a positive crowd, everything's been happening great for me. I got back in school. I'm gonna start college next year. I need to go to the military. I'm trying to make up my mind now.
Very good. Excellent.
That's
Excellent.
Great.
Excellent.
That
Excellent.
is great.
Very
I
good.
actually am on the board for your school. I'm one of the founding members of that school. So I'm glad to know that it's helping you meet your goals and, you know, get your dreams in line. That's awesome.
And he raised some critical issues there that I don't want to let pass, and that is, you know, the peer group that one hangs out with.
Oh, yeah.
It's extremely important, and a lot of people don't understand that. I mean, there's a statement, I mean, a perspective now that I believe, in fact, that says you are basically the average of the 6 people that you hang out with the most. You know, so you look around and you see who's closest to me. Who do I hang out with? Who do I call? Who do I, you know, et cetera. Take those 6 people and take an average of them, and that's you.
Right.
And go ahead.
Well, another point I'd like to make, you know, he admits that maybe he made some mistakes along the way, got into some trouble. But I feel like the way we manage children who do make mistakes now just basically criminalizes them
Right.
to a large degree, instead of looking at them as, you know, a 14, 15-year-old child who's in a world and trying to figure life out, maybe not even in the best environment like he describes. Everybody doesn't have a mother who goes to church every Wednesday and Sunday and gives the most wonderful advice. You know, some of us grow up in environments that aren't encouraging or inspiring, and maybe even the opposite of that. And then you're expected to be perfect. And when you make a mistake, people just want to crush all your dreams. And, you know, he talked about being an athlete, you know, and, you know, his opportunity to go that track of getting a sports scholarship now is limited.
Right.
Because instead of maybe taking him to the side and being, okay, what are the things that are leading you to make these bad decisions, and really helping him develop as a person and make better decisions, we criminalize it and then cut his opportunities off. And I think that's just the wrong route when we have the world we live in now, where parents are working, A lot of them working 2 or 3 jobs, and they have a limited ability to raise their kids, so to speak. And then basically they're making all these decisions on their own. And yet we've gotten so harsh with how we deal with children who get in fights or, you know, who have a little pot on them or whatever. When I was a kid, we had kids who did those things too. But it wasn't an automatic, you know, you're a criminal, that's it.
Right.
You're going to be useless the rest of your life. We're done with you. No, you don't get another chance like it is now.
I think another thing that I tend to notice is that not only does the world hold them in hostage for that mistake, but the children today seem to hold themselves in hostage about that. They don't
yeah.
seem to let it go. And so I would, you know, just kind of encourage children to think hard about what it is that you want to do. Let go those things that you didn't do correctly. Let
Right.
go those mistakes that you
Absolutely.
made, and realize that even your parents, even those of us that are sitting in front of you,
Oh, yeah.
we've made mistakes and we had to let it go. And so you too can move forward
Oh,
in
yeah.
your
Your
career
whole
and
life
whatever,
can
in your
be.
school, which is whatever it is that you want to do in life.
Right.
You can let it go.
Right. Gloria Hillman has collected some questions from these young people, and so I'm going to have her ask her to come up and read some of those.
In what ways do you think music influences our youth?
Ooh, yeah. Don't even
Wow.
get me started on that one.
You want to go first on that?
Yeah, I'll go first on that. I want to talk about an incident that happened recently. I don't want to give names because I can't remember exactly where it happened or exactly which children they were. But these young men basically sexually assaulted this young woman while she was drunk. And they videotaped it, and they think they might have put it on YouTube or Facebook or some social media channel. Okay? And they criminalized these boys and put them in jail. And they should have gotten in trouble for that. I'm not saying it's not as absolutely wrong. But our culture now, there are so many songs that basically describe doing that very thing and describing it not only as not a crime or not wrong, but practically ideal.
Right.
You know, I can think of one song, and I don't want to call anybody out because I actually like this artist, but one of the lines in his songs is, "This club's so packed, these girls so drunk." Why does it matter that the girls are so drunk? There's an implicit sort of meaning in there that, oh yeah, these girls are drunk, they're easy, I can take one of them home and do whatever.
Right.
It's the implication.
Take advantage of
and
them,
take
yeah.
advantage of them, and that is a crime. But it's presented as like, that's just what you do when you go out. You look for the drunk girl and you take her home.
You said you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was going to just following along those same lines. We were listening to an interview by a well-known rapper today, and in the interview, the host asked the rapper, "So tell us a little bit about your past." And the rapper became outraged that someone had accused him of having worked a legitimate 9-to-5 job in his younger
Wow.
days.
Accused him.
Accused him. And he said, "I've never worked a job. I've always been a G." And he just proceeded on with his rant about, you know, what it's like to have been a hustle man, have earned his credits on the street. And, you know, that was in prime daytime when my family and I, you know, were flipping the channels and came
Right.
across this interview. So our children are seeing this type of thing, and they're thinking, oh, that's the way I may need to be in order to be cool. It's not legitimate to say I worked a 9-to-5 job.
And went to school and
Right,
all
and I
that,
went
right?
to school, I got my lesson, et cetera. So, you know, I had to wonder, at what point did things change when it became an insult, when it became something that was uncool to have a legitimate job?
Right.
But that's where we are today.
Right.
And so hence, I feel like rap music has negatively, the art, not just the music, but the artists themselves have negatively impacted our children today.
Right. Alan?
I'll just say one thing about it that might be a little bit different spin. I remember finding and liking music that upset my parents.
Oh yeah, me too.
I had to find, I didn't know it at the time, but when I look back, I had to listen to music that my parents would have thought was outrageous. And I think that is one way kids, young people, establish themselves as different and as adults, is by listening to music that offends adults.
Right.
I'll go way back to really age myself, but you know, probably our parents or my parents had to listen to Elvis Presley, who was offensive to older people. then I remember listening to music that was loud and fast, and it offended my parents. So one way kids can rebel against their parents, set themselves up as individuals, is to listen to music that's offensive to us
Right.
or to their parents. And if you don't take that to heart, music ain't real, y'all. What people say in music and the way they describe themselves in their lives, it's not real.
It's not.
You might think it is, but it's not real. And you'll see a few people who glorify that, but for all of us, if we lived out the things that we heard in music or even saw in movies, you can't live your life like that.
No.
So,
And that's the problem right now, is that young people are attempting to live that out,
Right.
as opposed to listening to the music and all that. I remember when I was not so much a teenager, because that was a Motown, era. When I was a teenager, a bunch of love songs,
Right.
the whole thing, go to a party and try to rap to a woman, turn the lights down low, the music down low, and try to be a lover,
but
that
your
kind of
grandma
thing.
would have probably
And,
thought that was offensive.
Well, my grandmother probably would. My parents understood it, actually, because my father had done that to my mother, so, he that's how they ended up hooking up, they got it. But later on, there was music that was problematic, became somewhat problematic. When I was working on my doctorate, I happened to stumble in the library one day, literally stumbled and fell and in an area. And when I was getting up, I looked and I was in a section on Egypt, Egyptology. And I said, oh, this is interesting, And I pulled the book and I just started looking, and it was actually a book where there was newspapers from ancient Egypt that had been translated into English. And so I'm looking through these newspapers and all that, and I come up on this whole thing where there's a writer who was supposed to be, basically like keeping up with what was going on in society, at the time. And all of the articles were complaining about the youth. Their music is loud. They dress funny. They, what is the world coming to? The world is getting ready to end. So I think each generation thinks the one behind it is nuts.
I try to think about that too, but I think it's kind of, and I think each generation has to outdo the one before.
Right.
So like we had Two Live Crew, right?
Right.
But we had things that counterbalanced Two Live Crew.
It's true.
We had Luther Vandross
Right.
to balance Two
Right.
Live Crew. There was a balance in the music. We had Tribe Called Quest to balance NWA. So
Right.
you had like rappers and stuff like that pushed the envelope, but you also had a lot of artists who didn't. And sort of the mainstream culture was more the artists who didn't. Your Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Princes, the guys who were sort of in the groove and maybe saying things that were edgy to our parents, but who weren't advocating drug use or rape
Or killing people.
or murder
Yeah, right.
Or not working.
or gang
No,
involvement
not working,
or
right,
unemployment.
right.
I mean,
Right.
it's like now the music promotes not just edgy behavior. I mean, at this point, I'd be cool if all they were talking about was getting it in or even smoking a joint.
Right.
I'd almost be cool with that if that's what they were talking about in music.
Right.
But they're talking about raping people.
Right.
They're talking about being in gangs. They're talking about murdering people.
Right.
We're not talking about just being a little naughty. We're talking about ruining your life.
Exactly. And other people's
and
lives
other
too.
people's
Yes,
lives.
certainly.
And I think it's a little bit different now.
Yeah. We'd like to have another question, please.
What are the steps to start your own business?
Can I ask Al that question?
I want to pass that over.
No.
Well, there actually is a governmental organization called the Small Business Association, SBA, that if anyone is interested in starting their own business, whether it be minorities, women, or majority population, et cetera, that is the place to go. All right, and they have a process that they send people through, and they provide assistance also in helping people develop a plan of action, for their business. They will counsel folks. They will teach you how to survey the market, for example, and figure out whether or not what you do is something that you really ought to be doing in this particular area. For example, you're in Macon, Georgia. Do we really need another soul food restaurant? That kind of stuff, you see. We have four or five Japanese grills and more popping up, you know, each day. You want to start a Japanese grill. Do you really want to do that in Macon? You see what I'm saying? In Macon, Georgia. And so go to the Small Business Administration. I think they can offer much more information and advice and guidance than any of us here, you know, could do.
I can give you some psychological guidance, I guess. I'm in the process of starting a small business myself, and I think the biggest thing is having the courage to do it and not being afraid. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. I think a lot of times we talk ourselves out of things. We want to be stable. You want something, you know you're getting a check on Friday and it's fine. And to step out there and say, okay, I'm going to give up my paycheck that I know I'm going to get to pursue this dream of this business I have that may or may not succeed. You have to be willing to take a chance, and you have to be willing to fail. Because very few people try something the first time and get it exactly right that first time. And you've got to be willing to keep digging deep and keep trying, keep trying. A young man earlier was talking about wanting to be in the music industry. I have a brother who's heavily involved in the music industry. He's a producer. And, you know, starting out, he was hungry. He called me all the time. You got $20? Can I get $10? I need gas money. I mean, it broke. No money. And anytime you're venturing out there starting your own business, you have to be willing to sacrifice for a while. You don't just start a business and then you have lots of money in 2 days. It usually takes months or years in order for your business to prosper. I would say for him, he started making music when he was about 16. He started turning a profit when he was about 20, I'm guessing, probably about 24. So that's a lot of time. That's, you know, that's 8 years. So you've got to be dedicated and put your all into it.
Can I speak to them also?
Certainly.
Just maybe you would agree, I hope. Here's something that occurs to me all the time. If you see somebody doing something you would like to do, if you look out and you see an adult doing a job or, you know, having a hobby or making money doing something, probably the best thing you could do is to go and try to get to know that person and let them be your mentor. Let them teach you, tell you. I'll tell you a secret, and it really isn't a secret, but maybe something you don't think about very often. That's what we want to do. You get to a certain place in your life as an adult, and you're not hustling to make it every day, but you're successful. You want to hand that on to somebody else. So if a young person, a student, comes to me and says, I'm interested in being a psychologist, that makes me feel great to tell them what it's like and to show them what it's like and to give them advice and to guide them into doing that. It's a need we have as adults.
Absolutely.
To hand that on to you. So if you see somebody doing something that you think you'd be interested in doing, if it's sports or music or science or medicine or business, if you go and introduce yourself and you're sincere and you're polite and respectful and you tell them you're interested in what they're doing, they will help you.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing good that's ever happened to me that somebody didn't help me do it.
Exactly.
And, you know, like I was saying earlier, you know, make your own new and improved mistakes. If you have a mentor, you not only have the benefit of your own common sense and your own mind and thoughts, you have the benefits of all their successes and failures from the past.
Right.
So if you come up with an idea that you think is this great idea, but you have a mentor, you can say, hey, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about I'll make a commercial with a police lineup for Mountain Dew. Your mentor can tell you, no, that's not a good idea. You know, what you really should do is this. And, you know, if you have somebody backing you up, it helps you get along your way faster, easier, more smoothly. You'll make your own new and improved mistakes instead of repeating the same mistakes that individual already invariably made.
Exactly.
One of the things I was going to add is that I meet with a lot of people who have ideas about what they want to do later on in life. And some of those do include individuals that say, I want to start my own business. Regretfully, they don't have the fundamental, the basic skills to do that. And when I say basic, I mean just, in my field, we call it soft skills. And those would include the ability to just communicate with others, to be able to talk about what it is that your vision is, and to be able to very basically put it in writing. I've met with individuals that can hardly form a complete sentence, but their mindset is, I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to make $1 million from this. If you ask them who have they networked with, you talked about mentoring, they haven't talked to anybody about it that's in that field.
Right.
And so they just kind of came up with this idea, which maybe is a good idea, but maybe it's not. And so you would need to have the fundamental skills of being able to sit down and have a conversation, articulate what it is that you want to do, and to put it in writing. Regardless of what your passion is, if it's to become an entrepreneur, that's a business. And in the end, you're going to want to make some proceeds from that. You're going to want to make money from that. But you can't do that if you're all over the place, and when people see you, they're afraid to talk to you because maybe you don't present yourself well. You want to think about those kind of things. Even if your thought process is, I'm going to open my own business one day, you want to think to yourself, I need a certain level of education. I need a certain level of mannerism. I need to appear somewhat, like I have the mindset to even open my own business, and you want to proceed to seek out individuals that can guide you. It doesn't matter what the business is. If it's music, it doesn't matter if you think you're going to be the best rapper in the world. There are people that are going to be putting their name behind you and helping you, and they want to make money off of it.
Okay. Let's go to the next question.
I feel that I'm not good enough, like that I'm not skinny enough or pretty enough. I was wondering, how could I boost my confidence so that I can love myself?
Well, we have two beautiful, accomplished women here, so I'm going to let them answer that.
I can tell you that is coming from one woman to another. That's a problem that most women face when they're younger. They face that because you see the videos and you're trying to fit in and figure out, how should my hair look? How should my skin look? What should I put on? Should I wear big earrings or small ones, makeup or not? What helped me the most is, to be honest, is to just have confidence in what I know and what I can do and not try to compete with others. I had to realize once I got older that my talent may not be like anybody else's, but what I do have, I'm going to be good at. And I set in my mind to be good at that particular thing. I don't know if you've heard the saying, I'm a little bit older than you guys out there, just a little bit. And my grandmother used to say you can be, a jack of many trades, a master of none. That's it. So with that, if you think about the fact that you don't have to master the world, you can just really pick that particular thing that you're good at, have confidence in it, and don't worry about being everything to everybody. Have confidence in what you can do and do it well. Someone will love you, and that someone needs to start with you loving yourself first.
Absolutely. And beauty is all within perception, okay? At any point or another, I've felt unattractive for whatever reason, when I was younger.
Yeah.
Now I really don't care pretty much if anyone thinks I'm attractive or not. But when I was your age, I definitely cared if somebody thought I was attractive or not. So I definitely can relate to that. I had the opposite problem. I was extremely skinny, like no hips, no nothing. I looked like a 10-year-old until I was like 20. And so, of course, that's not attractive either. And, you get passed over for dates or whatever. But the upside of it, if you don't match the perfect model image of what people think is beautiful, is that when you do connect with people, it tends to be more sincere. So nobody's liking you because you've got, a 16-inch waist and 34-inch hips and, whatever, the perfect model thing. And, Barbie that is like that, 16-inch waist, 34-inch hips. Nobody's really like that. But anyway, you're this perfect person, but people are attracted to you because of your body and not because of who you are. So there's a downside to either way. The other thing I would say is, I can see the audience, the people at home can't, but everybody in this audience is beautiful. I don't see anybody that needs to be hanging their head going, oh, you know what? I need to put the bag on because I don't need to face the world. And you know, the beauty that they have is in there. I've met all of them. I've talked to each of them. They all have great personalities. They all project themselves well. And so put your stock in that. The way you look will change over time. Be your best you. I will tell anybody the best way to feel good about yourself is to be fit, be strong, and be your best you. There's not a size on that. There's not a weight on that. There's not a skin color, hair texture, or specific way to be. Just be your very best you.
Okay, I want to get this young man again who wants to come and say something to us.
I just want to ask, get back on the music subject again.
Mhm.
Well, I want to ask y'all opinion. What is bad music? What do y'all call bad music? Because I would like to ask y'all, because y'all know y'all business people and y'all educators, and I want to get y'all attention. So how can y'all manage or advertise my music group or whatever out there like that?
Hmm. Well, I think when, I mean, am I cutting you off or?
Oh, no, sir, you go ahead.
Okay, okay, cool. Then you can, yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. But when I think of music, I mean, I used to be involved in music when I was younger. I played the piano, and I was a singer when I was younger. And when I think of music, of course, I go way back, you know, as some people like to remind me of. But I think, especially with black music has always been, until recently, a kind of ethical and focal point for the black community that gave us analysis, entertained us, but also gave us a vision of a better life, better future. So, for example, when you look at the music that came out of Motown, for example, the Temptations, the Full Tops, the Supremes, you know, et cetera. Yeah, Sam Cooke, you know, came out of Stax Records, and you know, and all of that. Stand By Me by Benny King, you know, all that kind of thing. Uplifting music that made you feel like things are going to get better. Things are going to be okay, you know. I may not have any money right now, you know. I may be having issues, you know, right now, but I can put on Stand By Me, and that's making me go the extra mile to be able to do something. The problem now with a lot of music that's coming out of particularly the African American community is we're not getting that. Instead, what we're getting, and I think Dr. Matthews put it very well, what we're getting is the worst of the community. Right. The crime, the gang, the drugs, the raping women, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And we're allowing other people who don't have the best interest of our communities at heart to drive this instrument into our community for profit, for the profit motive. I travel abroad a lot, and what's very disturbing when you get out of this country is to see young people in other nations listening to this kind of music, and they have formed their opinion of black people and Americans based upon this music. Right. To see in Japan kids walking through a mall, you know, talking about, hey, my nigga, you know, Japanese kids, rappers in Germany. There was in Germany there was this rapper that the government, in fact, finally sanctioned because he was making his version of gangster rap. Wow. In Germany, patterned after the gangster rappers, you know, here. And I mean, the most obscene things were coming, you know, out of his mouth. I was in Africa. I was in Senegal with some other people, and we caught a cab, and the cab driver was trying to practice his English, you know, with us, and he knew we were Americans. And he said, I know some English, and I know some good American music also. And we said, okay. He said, let me play it for you. And he put in a CD of the worst kind of gangster rap you ever have heard in your life. This is America.
Right.
So we have a responsibility. Not only do we, when you ask the question, what kind of music and what you should be doing, think about the responsibility that you have as a young man to your community, to your family, to your parents, to your nation, to present a better view and a better version of reality than you grew up with.
Right. And your music is your voice.
Right.
And so what do you really stand for? Do you stand for women being beat up, abused, mistreated? Do you stand for going out there slinging dope? Do you stand for getting high all the time? Do you stand for thugging out? What are you about? What are you proud of about yourself? What do you want to represent? You know, y'all always like to say represent your whatever, represent your hood, rep whatever. What do you want to represent? And when in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when you have kids of your own, what are they going to want? What are you going to want them to think about you?
Right.
You know, what can you do that you can be proud of for the rest of your life?
Well, what do
Sam
you want your
Cooke.
8-year-old brother to listen, sister
Exactly.
to listen?
Exactly.
Sam Cooke, from the day he wrote that song to the day he died, could play that song for anybody
Exactly.
with a sense of
He
pride.
could play it for his mama.
He could play it for his mama, his grandmama, his auntie, anybody. They could play Sam Cooke at church.
Exactly.
I was thinking of change gonna come, Joe.
And change's gonna come, you could play at church. So
Right.
whatever you do, and not just in music and life, represent yourself well. Whatever career you're in, if you own a bakery, you make that the best bakery. So when people say, you know, I don't know, Barbara's Bakery has, you want them to say they have the best muffins ever. You don't want them to say they got roaches on the floor and, you know, it's kind of grubby in there and yeah, I wouldn't even, you want to represent yourself well. Your name means something. It absolutely means something. And it'll mean more to you the older you get. So whatever music you make can be good music, but let it be something you can be proud of.
I hate to end this conversation, but we're out of time. That's the reality of TV, that we run out of time. But this is just the first. We're going to have others. Right? And the good thing about having our own show is they can do this kind of thing. You know, we can continue, you know, on. So we're hoping that you will come back, you know, our young people who are here for our next show, invite others and tell your friends. And we hope that the panelists will be able to come back, you know, as well, and we can continue this discussion as a kind of dialogue with our young people, right? Because we don't do this enough. And it's been really alarming to me to find out how many young people never have had a real honest-to-goodness conversation with an adult, where somebody wasn't screaming and yelling at them or telling them what to do and also, but just actually just talking about things that we can somehow partner up and somehow create a better community. I want to thank our panelists for being part of this this program. These are busy people, and they consented to come. I want to thank especially Dr. Barbara Matthews, who really put this together. She called me up and said, "What about this for the show?" And I said, "That's a great idea." And then I want to thank these young people who have sacrificed their time to come and be with us, and especially I want to thank the production team led by Mr. Jerome Gratney, who's here at Mercer, a very good friend of mine and extremely competent. So we want you to look forward to our next program that will be airing probably in another few weeks. For Our Voices, I'm Chester Fontenot. Thank you so much for tuning us in.